and welcome to a special edition of DNET, the Disability Network. I'm Bill McQueen. Almost everyone has, at one time or the other, dreamt of running their own business, like a restaurant, a neighborhood store, or a multi-million-dollar corporation. People with disabilities dream these dreams too, and today we'll meet two people who have pursued their entrepreneurial instincts. And we'll look at some of the practical realities of running your own business.
Les Lamb has owned his own pharmacy for the past 12 years.
There you go.
Thanks a lot.
At first, it was a way of creating a job opportunity for himself.
I started looking for a job in 1980, and it was very difficult, very difficult. I did most of my training in university, in the hospital field, and thinking that I can probably most likely get a job in a hospital pharmacy setting as opposed to a retail setting. But as I find out that that was not the reality at all. Hospitals were very reluctant at that time to even consider hiring somebody in a wheelchair. I learned from a friend that there's a store available, and the price was reasonable at that time. So that's how I kind of got into it. It was also almost like a safety net for me, thinking that if I can't really secure a job in this field, then perhaps getting into business myself would provide a more certain situation for a job for myself.
So Les went to the bank for a loan, which was guaranteed by his family. But then he found a job as a hospital pharmacist. Rather than choosing one job over the other, he decided to do both. After he finished his day's work at the hospital, he would go to the store to spend time setting things up.
When I first started, I was working full-time at the hospital and running a business at the same time. So the hospital itself is a full-time job, 40 hours, a week. And then I worked, at my own business after hours, on weekends, catch up, on paperworks, doing service calls and that sort of thing. That's how it adds up. And I need to do that back then. I need a full-time job to bring in a steady income to supplement the business, because obviously when you first start a business, usually it's not profitable. It's not even breaking even sometimes. And it takes a while to get it off the ground.
And part of this meant learning new skills.
I never took a course in accounting or economics. I never thought I would be in a position to run a business. So I thought that the furthest I'll ever go probably is work as a pharmacist, strictly a dispensing pharmacist in a retail store if I have to. So this so-called business, running a business, is totally new to me until I got into it.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. The first year, my accountant did everything for me. He trained me, showed me how to do bookkeeping, simple bookkeeping, so that he can manage the year-end stuff. And that took quite a long time, and because I have no concept whatsoever what accounting means. And so I decided, well, maybe I should borrow a textbook or something. And I borrowed a textbook from a friend.
But he discovered there's more to business than having an idea or learning basic accounting.
You think about all the forms that we have to fill out in business, all the tax, all the reporting, all the regulations that we have to follow. It's horrendous. Sometimes you really wonder. I mean, I spend a lot of my energy in fulfilling these requirements from the government. Reporting GST, reporting PST, reporting payroll, reporting all these things. It's a full-time job.
Hi, Mr. Kobasi.
Les's business continues to thrive, backed by people in the neighborhood.
This one?
And he plans to expand his business.
One of my
don't have the other one, right?
project or plans is to have a medical office, a medical practice, alongside with the store. We have got the permissions and the license to renovate and to establish a medical office in the same building, and we have renovated that. And we're in the process of seeking a physician to start up a practice and to make this combination into a totally, friendly environment for somebody with disability. I make sure the aisles are wide enough, at least for me to pass through, because originally the store layout was different. There were aisles in the store that I could not get through. There were things piled on the floor that prevents me from getting by. Also, the entrances, there was, because of the location, the physical location of the store, it was elevated somewhat, and so there were steps. So I had to build a ramp, put a ramp in so that, somebody in a wheelchair can negotiate into the store. I'm hoping to still have plans in the future to make the door automatic, so that it would be more user-friendly to a person in a wheelchair. I would most certainly not hesitate to be in business again. There is so much reward. Certainly, there was a lot of hard work that I have to put through. There's no question about it. But I think the reward itself certainly outweighed the hardship that I have to put through. And I think that's probably the most important thing about being in business, is the fact that it's satisfying. It's nice to know that you have some control of what you wanted to do, of your destiny. You also have a sense of accomplishment, because you started off a business, an operation that is beneficial to not only the consumer, to your patients, to your customers. You also have the ability to create employment and to take charge of what you want to do.
Two, down arrow, spacebar, 6, 0, end key, 2 spaces,
Dan Thompson is a
0,
partner
2
in
spaces,
Quillvox
0,
Communications,
2 spaces, 0,
a computer
2 spaces,
company
0,
that he and 2 other people started 5 years ago.
Quillvox Communications specializes in voice recognition interfaces. What we do is we develop the layer that goes on top of the engine that makes it easier for people to access their computers. So, for example, we've done some work with the WordPerfect Corporation, and they've asked us to come up with logical, intuitive commands that allow you to say things like bold paragraph, delete 5 words, and of course the computer will do it.
voice console, wake up, new line.
My new job is product manager, and which means that I'm responsible for influencing, everything that goes towards the product. I'm looking at packaging, I'm looking at marketing channels. I used to work in the provincial government. I worked for both the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Community and Social Services, and I was the Disabilities Initiative job broker. So it was my mandate to place people with disabilities into employment within those 2 ministries. Part of my job was to look at technologies that would enhance their performance to make them much more efficient and effective within their job. And I went to a seminar and I took a look at voice recognition, and after taking one look at it, I thought I would have much more of an impact as a vendor selling this equipment, because it would show that people with disabilities can produce at a competitive rate than I could in the government. So I quit my job in 2 steps or less, and the rest is history.
5, 1, 9, close brand.
First of all, I really had very limited knowledge of computers, so I had to learn computers, okay, and I think I'm a fairly quick study, so I did learn computers very quickly. I also had to learn, more about how to sell, what type of closing techniques to put into play, how to I guess, look at a customer's needs and come up with a solution that's going to meet those needs. Okay, so good problem-solving skills, I guess, was needed, and overall, I guess I had to learn how to run a business.
I'll let Gord to come in as well.
Sure, no problem. Well, the first few years were actually very, very scary and very risky, because initially I received a salary. I also received commission, plus I received expenses to be drawn towards my van expenses as well as my tenant care expenses. We cooked a deal, or actually our president cooked a deal very short into our business, which almost, I should say, put us under. And as a result, I had to make a hard decision whether I stayed with Colvox or whether I tried to go on to something else. Because at that time, I could not receive a salary, expenses, and a wage, or a commission, I should say. So I went for getting strictly expenses and only getting commission. So in other words, I was built on performance.
Like, you know, they meet some guy with a disability, but they don't see him as being a consumer because he doesn't have money. And they don't see how to sort of tie those in. Because as I told you before, I mean, you've got some kind of funding source, you've got the influencer, and then you've got the people with disabilities, and it's a matter of tying those three together.
I worked probably on average 10 hours a day. Some days I would work almost as many as 18 hours a day. It would all depend. I mean, I'd see myself come in at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning, work a full day, and then go off and do a presentation for some type of disabled organization at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. When we first started, we were down in a business center. We did not have any secretarial staff. We used a common secretary that a whole bunch of businesses would share. And Isaac would do the higher end, like the financial things, and take care of the bookwork and that sort of thing. I handled the sales and sort of the day-to-day paperwork. And Frank, I should say, did the installations.
Contact file.
But that's changed. Colvox now employs 40 people
Contact
and
file.
recently went public on the Alberta
your file.
Stock Exchange. Last year, it netted $12 million from investments. Growth like this means major change. And that includes changes in the way Dan does business.
When I first started out, I called the shots. I mean, basically, it was me doing it, and I was out there. I was, selling. I was also taking care of the paperwork. I was doing it all, and then I would still work as a team. Of course, we had our president who would run more of the. He would do the quotes and take care of the financial side of things. We would have Frank Ferrari, who is our technician, who would take care of the installations and ensuring it was there. And I guess it's not really different in some ways in the fact that I'm still sort of orchestrating the process. I'm sort of helping along and making sure that things run smoothly, and that, sort of the handshake between one department to another is still there, but it's just done on a larger scale now.
And expanding a business means having to learn new things in order to stay profitable.
We were selling directly. We now have set up a dealer network, so that's a challenge in itself. How do you set up these dealers, and how do you make these dealers successful? How do you pass the torch? Then you look at corporate accounts. How do you set up strategic alliances with other businesses? How do you appease the shareholders, which is a monumental task in itself.
So we just had a call from Nova Scotia for somebody who has arthritis and has been told by her doctor she can't keyboard, period. So there's a potential user for us.
Yeah.
As for the future of Colvox, Dan hopes they can expand their market.
We would like to see voice recognition on every single computer. When you look at Compaq and you look at Microsoft, and they put warning labels on all their systems now indicating that it may cause repetitive strain injury, using voice recognition, I think, is a logical way to progress with using a computer.
No space. Ian. New line. Toronto phone number.
I really enjoy the sense of building the company. I really enjoy doing it by myself, and I wouldn't do it any other way. I think that's the main thing that I've learned.
Les Lamb and Dan Thompson are two people with disabilities who realized that becoming self-employed was the best option for them. And according to Wenda Abel, it's an option that many more people will choose. She is provincial coordinator of the training coordinating group for people with disabilities.
The people are saying, this is the only alternative I have. This is pretty much the only alternative I have of having a job and generating an income for myself. As the management structure of corporations flattens out, that that reduces the amount of progress that one can make, growth and development career-wise, growth and development in one's work. It also limits the amount of income that one can earn.
But there are other reasons for becoming self-employed. Becky Reiber is a professor with the University of Toronto's Faculty of Management.
Sometimes people are working for someone else and they think that they can do it better, and so they want the independence to be able to get that off the ground and to get that going. And sometimes they want to be able to set their own schedules, set their own goals, set their own work patterns, and they find that they're better able to do that within their business than they are working for someone else. Now, what a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you is, yeah, sure, I'm free, sure, I have control over my life. You know, I have the independence to work 80, 100-hour weeks. I have the freedom to jump whenever a customer or a supplier, wants my attention. So it's a bit of a myth that it's all independence and freedom for them, really.
I sleep on the average of about 4 or 5 hours a night. 7 nights a week, work 7 days a week. You don't have a life. It's hard. Basically, my life revolves around working at a hospital, working at a store. Go play basketball for a couple of hours. Come back to the store, work a bit more, go home and sleep, get up and go to work.
Creating a successful business requires long hours. It also takes a good idea, strategy, and effective marketing.
A feasible business idea is one that they know is going to work because they've done the appropriate research into the market. They know who their competition is. They know what the demand might be for the product or service. They've done their marketing research, so to speak.
I don't think if you properly plan out what you want to do and who you want to target, I don't think you're going to succeed. And obviously, in not succeeding, you go bankrupt as a company. So I think that's the biggest risk. I think you have to. Plan ahead, and I think you have to know specifically what you want to do and accomplish it.
And there are other issues a person with a disability has to consider, like physical access.
So I hopefully try to arrange a meeting that's mutually in an accessible spot. If their place of business is not accessible, then I usually try to rely on attendant care to help me up and down those stairs. And if that doesn't work, then we try to look, as I said, at a mutually accessible spot.
But in the end, it's all about awareness.
I can appreciate what a disabled person, in a wheelchair can would face on a day-to-day basis. I know how wide the aisle should be. I know the type of merchandise and equipments that a person requires, and I think most important of all, people with disability can probably relate a whole lot better, to myself than to another person, an individual. I find that with some of my patients, some of my friends, they have a much easier time talking to me, sharing with me about their problem and asking for advice or opinions than they previously encountered.
If I'm trying to sell the government on the fact that they should use voice recognition to ensure that people with disabilities can go run their own business or people with disabilities can succeed, who better to show it? Okay, if I want to show an insurance company that they can reduce the burden of an individual by getting them back into the workforce in a more timely fashion, who better to show by example?
But when they actually see a real example of somebody working and performing a duty or job just like everybody else, then I think it hits home a lot better than trying to educate them with flyers and brochures and all that. And I think that's good. That's probably a much better way of creating awareness in terms of the disability, ability of a disabled person, as opposed to having a campaign on paper.
I don't see you.
Okay.
Have a happy New Year.
You too. Okay. Take care.
Do your job.
Bye-bye.
That's Disability Network for this week. If you'd like more information on how to become self-employed, contact your local Canada Employment Centre office. Their number can be found in the government pages of your phone book. We'd also like to know if you've had any experience running your own business. Tell us why you did it, and let us know what advice you may have for others with an entrepreneurial spirit. Our address is coming right up. I'm Bill McQueen. See you again next week. You can write to us at the Disability Network, CBC, Box 500, Station A, Toronto, M5W 1E6. That's Disability Network, CBC, Box 500, Station A, Toronto, M5W 1E6. Or you can fax us at area code 416-205-3399. Next week on DNET, we'll look at the new reproductive and genetic technologies and the implications they have for people with disabilities.
We have a society in which the rights of people with disabilities have been recognized constitutionally, the highest law in the land, and yet on the other hand we have geneticists and the medical profession trying to eliminate disability through prenatal screening.
That's next week on DNET. This program is brought to you in part by the Canadian Association of Independent Living Centres, promoting and supporting the development of independent living resource centres across Canada.